Well, one of the things I wanted to comment on though is that the kind of burgeoning third world problem is there aren't there's consequences for everybody. There's also consequences for the left to a certain extent. One of the things we were talking about was the California single payer healthcare bill that failed a couple days ago, and it failed because the estimated budget for this bill eclipsed the entire state budget for the year. And it just shows that even their like leftist economic goals and whatever, even those now are kind of, we've talked about this before. We could have all these nice things if we had a nice white country. Well, now they're going to have to start giving up on some of these things because they're just not going to be like fiscally possible anymore. So, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, what are you going to start abandoning all these aspects of your platform now, and just double down on, a billion people from Africa? I mean, how's this a workable fucking thing anymore?
I think they just literally don't think about it because, again, talking to leftists, really the only leftists that I really talk to in person very much anymore are people in my family. And when I don't try to fight, I don't want to create, it's not that I want to, I bring these issues up to them. Like I'll say to them, how can you have, I know you're a big supporter of single payer. How can you have a single payer if we're going to have open borders? Like literally that doesn't work. And I don't have to be a right-wing, alt-right, white supremacist extremist to point this out. Like I'm just asking you as a devoted liberal, how do you have those two things at once? How do you have open borders and single payer? Like, please tell me, because this, I don't see how I could be a normie and this would be an obvious glaring fucking hole in your program, and they literally have not thought about it.
Well, for a lot of people, this is still abstract, but with the California pulling of their own bill, I mean, it was the Democrats who pulled their own bill because of financial issues. Now it's kind of, the rubber is starting to meet the road on this stuff. They realize that they can't afford to implement these things. Maybe that's what it's going to take. I don't know. I mean...
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be them. But then, you're always going to get that segment of the left that is like these idealistic communist types that always say there's enough money for everything. It's just that, capitalists are taking all of it or something like that.
Right.
So perhaps that viewpoint will become more and more popular, or they'll say it's because of racism. We don't want to cough up the money for these programs because, if it was just for white people, of course we'd find the money now. Of course, that's true. But that's because if we actually closed our borders and went back to being a white country, we could have single payer and we could afford it because white people would be responsible enough. In the majority, 90% of white people would be net tax payers rather than receivers, and those few that were left behind or whatever you want to call them are just too shitty to be able to make money and contribute to society. They would be taken care of.
Yeah, we'd be able to carry them.
But. Right, exactly. So we could carry our own bottom 10%, no problem. Like we've always been able to do that. That's not even an issue. But yeah, so it's sort of but with this idea that, I mean, they just don't want to face these issues. No. And it's difficult, I think, for the idealistic liberal. And I mean, I do remember a conversation I had with a liberal recently, and I said to her, I did say, I could get behind a single payer. The problem is you'd have to close the border because you literally can't. And she's like, well, that's where we part ways. That's where we part ways. And I was like, well, okay, but this is not up for debate in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
It's not that. I'm just telling you factually, to have a single payer, you have to close the border. You can't. You can't have socialism with open entry. This is basic.
You can't have environmental policy with open borders. I mean, that's the bottom,
You can't have anything that costs money with open borders because you just be bringing in more customers good. Yeah. What does that do?
Yeah. I mean, and even you don't even have to look at it in terms of, I mean, when libertarians like to do all this autistic sort of thought experiments and economic modeling and yeah, you could even do one where all right. If you give something free at your store for a day, right? But you just open the doors to literally everybody. Well, yeah, you're gonna get run over instead of, I don't know, give it to previously paying customers. Previously paying customers get a free item at my store today or something like that. You can't just open the doors to literally everyone. I mean, it's like you can do thought experiments like this, and it's like it doesn't fucking work because people will just rush across the board. Can you imagine? what the fucking shit show we would get in this country if we decided to pass single payer nationwide, nationally.
Oh my God.
And we didn't control our border. Do you know the stampede of people? And of course, liberals would try and put in all kinds of little things that made it like illegal to discriminate at hospitals, made it so that like you could like the things they do now, where they make it like illegal for people to like check immigration status.
Yeah.
At social services places, like you go to someplace to get social services, and they literally can't ask you.
They don't even want to. Do
they
they
can't.
No.
Well, they don't want to, but just in case there's like one person that might want to. I remember we used to have a guy in our Facebook group years ago. I don't know if I think he probably left. Whatever. He's a friend. He's a good friend. He's still a friend. He's a pal. But he was working in a welfare office in California. I haven't seen him in a while. He was working in a welfare office in California. We used to tell him, like, report them. And he was like, I want to, but I'll get fired. And I was like, just fucking do it. Just report them.
Jesus.
He was like, I'm confident that literally nobody...
Yeah.
Yeah. Make a list and go home at the end of your shift.
He's confident literally none of these Hispanics he deals with are citizens. I was like, if you know that, just fucking call ICE. And he's like, we're not supposed to. We've been instructed not to. And I was like, so literally, they are telling you. I was like, there's nothing illegal about you calling ICE. You should just do it. He's like, no, I will like lose my job for doing that. And and yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had something on that, Jazz Hands? I heard you trying to get in there.
Sorry.
No, I didn't. Just,
Yeah.
California it's going to be the place where that sort of the rubber meets the road thing sort of happens first. And they start to realize that they have to walk back these dreams, I guess, the leftist dreams. But what you were saying at the beginning was, Sven, was the whole thing on they've kind of abandoned the white working class. We've been kind of talking about this a lot. And they bet on this coalition of the ascendant, as they called it, the non-white
coalition of the gutter, as I call it.
And they can't walk it back. I mean, how do you start going back to bread and butter economic issues for whites after you've already kind of opened the door on non-whites? And that's where you put, I mean, Biden is easily the most popular candidate, but I mean, what are they going to do? How do they turn out the non-whites? I mean, it's fine. They could come out and run the old playbook, but who's going to show up to vote for them? They're just not there. So, I mean, they've really backed themselves into a corner with this, and I don't see any sign that the left is going to change their position on immigration. They're just not going to do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong on the demographics of the electorate, but doesn't it usually run... I mean, the reason this is happening is with whites, you generally get a conservative-liberal split around, 65-35, 60-40, something like
probably about
something like that. So as the white population declines, as a percentage, not necessarily in raw numbers, I mean that 40-35% is an even smaller portion of what you need to win. So it's not zero.
And those are people that turn out at like 70% rate.
Meanwhile, the Mexicans, they don't really turn out. The blacks really don't turn out.
No.
So it's like kind of like the math is a little bit against them right now.
Actually, not allow me to countersignal you, Goy. It's actually Mexicans who do not turn out more so than blacks. And I think the intern can look this up. They have a very difficult time getting Hispanics to turn out more so than blacks. But
they've got the black thing down to a science. But the Mexicans, they don't. Yes, they do get blacks out more than they get Mexicans.
Wow, that surprises me. I assume that. I assume Mexicans had
more.
It
actually kind of doesn't
agency.
surprise me, but
it surprised me when I heard it. But Mike, I want to hear why it doesn't surprise you.
The reason I think it doesn't surprise me is because the Democrats have a machine that they've been building in the inner cities with the blacks for years, and so they have getting the black vote out down to a science. They don't have quite that machine with the Hispanics yet, and they do. I think they also, in its own way, like they know that the blacks don't have agency. The blacks literally have to be cajoled into going to the polls, or like signed up, and then they just get a list of names, and then they have a bunch of blacks go to different polling locations as different names to vote in those names. I mean, they do. We know that they do this. Okay, like this is not like theoretical. Like we know that they do this. We know they do it in Philadelphia, for example. I mean, that was a one of the major places that we were focusing on during the election was Philadelphia, and then they do it in all cities with a big black population. So there's kind of like this machine where because blacks were sort of like the high black populations focused in these cities, these big cities, and their neighborhoods in these big cities, and there's neighborhood bosses. I mean, it really is sort of like a tribal thing, and you get those neighborhood bosses on board. You got certain things, and the wheels get greased, and then you get the votes, and like so they've got that down to a science. I don't think they have that down with the Mexicans yet. I mean, they're probably working on it, but to some extent, they're like the bad data on all the illegals, like to some extent, actually hurts them too because they just don't know.
They just don't know.
The black populations are thoroughly fucking monitored and checked, and like they're checked into everybody. Every single black in America is checked into at least 3 social programs. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
They are the completely controlled, monitored, checked every box population, like the social workers, the city bureaucracy, everything. They know everything about all these blacks in the neighborhoods, and every single one of them is on 8 different kinds of assistance, whatever. But yeah. And it's also, I guess if you do rely somewhat on these people's own agency.
The intern.
Also, blacks are citizens.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Blacks are
the
citizens.
intern's giving
Blacks
me.
are citizens,
So they're not under this weird risk.
The intern's giving us some numbers on Latino voters, but he's giving us support for Clinton
Turnout
versus
numbers.
support for Obama. Well, I want to see turnout numbers if they've got.
Yeah, we want to see
Yeah.
turnout. Yeah, and it fell
for
for
Hillary.
it fell for Clinton. Yeah, and that's the thing is if they don't relate to someone, if they don't have someone to whom they can relate, and this is true for this coalition of the ascendant. I mean, if the Democrats run another white person, it wasn't just that Hillary was bad; it's that she was white and she was a woman and she sounded terrible. But I mean, another a big greening white guy, like it's not gonna. That's been the antithesis to what these people have been doing since 2012, and probably a little bit before then. But 2012 is really when it shifted in the other direction.
You ever noticed?
So.
I don't think I've heard this talked about on any of our shows. But just that term, coalition of the ascendant, is such a giant dog whistle. It's like. Think what they're communicating with that.
Yeah.
They're saying that this rising force of foreign, barely speaking English, gender fluid, gender confused, sexually confused, and dysfunctional mob of weirdos are on their way up. And you, Goy, you're the coalition of the. I guess you'd be the descendant. You'd be descending. This is.
Yeah, I mean that's the only way to. The only way to interpret that, right? The coalition of the descendant, the white normal people.
You're on the way out. You're on the way down. It's pretty amazing that they go with that. I mean, they found like a poetic way of saying like, you're out, you're going down, the downward spiral.
Right, and the thing is that they feel like we have been conditioned enough that we just don't notice it, and a significant number of white people have been conditioned enough where either they don't know but that this stuff is being talked about or being discussed, or they just they go along with it thinking it's great. I mean, there's significant. I mean, white liberals are essentially people that have been gaslit so bad that they think it's great that they're dying. I mean, we see this actually. It's pathetic and disgusting, but we do see it when we go and argue with normies on various social media platforms and even in person. You see these people are literally happy to die, and it's insane, and it doesn't make any sense. It's crazy, but that's how they think. But I did want to say one thing about kind of going back to the issue of California and having to abandon their single payer bill because they just have too many third worlders in their fucking state. That ultimately those things, like those populist economic or socialistic economic measures that the left has always wanted to take, they will be abandoned. I mean, they abandon this, and ultimately the conflict between those things and open borders is going to mean that those things go, and the those things are not going to be something. I mean, because you got like a lot of the people that support those kind of programs, leftist white liberals that support those kind of programs, support various socialist programs. These are often very kind of Nordic white people. They're often like Scandinavian or German, and they believe in these sort of communitarian solutions. They believe in like collectivism somewhat, and that instinct of theirs for like community has been sort of perverted in favor of these large government bureaucracies. But that's not even so much a big deal. But it sort of does strike me like, what are they going to say to these people? What are they going to say to these liberal whites? all your dreams about these communitarian programs, these programs that are going to help the little guy, these socialistic programs that are meant to build strong communities and lift up the guys that can't come along, and we can't afford them because we're literally flooding the country. They're just going to have to revert to neoliberalism. Like, the Democratic Party is just going to become the party of neoliberal capitalism. And they're not going to be able to afford these socialistic programs that a lot of these liberal whites want. And, you know, they're it's just a funny situation because it's like, all right, so because part of the plank of the liberal program is like anti-racism, everybody gets a shot, everybody gets included. And the other is like all this sort of economic socialism. Well, guess what? Like, that's all going to go out the window. Like, all that shit's going to go out the window. And I really think that as a platform, you're going to see the party, the Democrat Party, abandoning that stuff. Because they're not going to, they know that, like, in California, they had to pull their own national or their own statewide health care because they can't afford it. So
it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Do it.
At this point.
It's just going to keep limping along as it does, right? I mean, they just get free emergency care. I mean, that's
But the danger in it, the danger of even promoting that stuff anymore is that white people are going to wake up to the demographic situation. Because it's like, that's a big red pill for liberals, is like, you want a socialized healthcare system. Well, you can't have it because we have literally millions of Mexicans crossing the border.
Virtually everything that the Bernie coalition that energized those people to vote goes out the window. Everything.
Yes, exactly. And so they're going to be thrown under the bus next. That's my point. And that's why I really think we should be doing outreach to these people. I mean, don't knock yourself out, don't kill yourself. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm telling you, if you have any Bernie bro friends, particularly if they're white dudes, you can fucking discuss this with them. You have to be you have to be their friend already, and you have to be able to kind of talk to them without going overboard on things are going to trigger them. Yeah. But you can start the process in their mind. Like, we were trolling this guy. We actually met this guy
like
first off, you're Jewish, okay?
You can't be like that to your friends.
No. You can't do that. But we talked to this guy. We were in D.C. I guess it was last night. And there was this guy outside the bar. It was a Bernie bro, and I was talking to him for a while, and I was trying to red pill him and stuff, and he was pretty resistant, but he kind of got like some of the stuff I was saying, where I was like, I was like, I don't, you probably think as a right winger, I'm like against all this and that. Is like, but I'm really not, and you got to know, like, the open immigration is going to be the Achilles heel and all this. He's like, yeah, but everything's like, he's like, I just really, I love America though. Everything's great here, and I don't. It's like, why is everything getting ruined? And I was like, well, dude, let's
stop and think about that for a moment.
Let's think about that. And he's like, but I don't want to be racist. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone in the world to be happy. And I was like, all right. First of all, that's kind of gay. Like, no, I didn't say that. But I was like, I was just like, dude, like, it's not going to work. He was resistant because he didn't know me, so he was more resistant to, like, a stranger, particularly because he also knew, like, literally we were all, there was about 60 of us in a bar, and so he had an idea of who we were, so he was very resistant because of that. But like I'm saying, if he's your pal, if someone you know, you can easily just plant these little seeds in their mind and let them develop. I know we've had Bernie bro people coming over because of this stuff, so...
Yep.
Well, when you think about it, the economic populism isn't that far off from this stuff. I mean, that's why, certain people, I guess from the libertarian camp that haven't fully transitioned yet, make cracks about like white people communism or something. It's like, yeah, it's because you forego a few like free market principles because you realize that you're just gonna have a responsibility towards your own people who don't make the cut. I guess you can't just because in Capistan, like,
for me, it's even trade-offs, dude. It's like, dude, like, libertarians are all about trade-offs. What are you willing? I'm willing to give. I'm willing to have a freaking single-payer health care. Like, I get it. It's not optimal economically. Fine. I understand that argument. I am willing to go with it in order to have.
Some of them are willing to literally allow their folks who can't get their shit together to just like starve and die in a fucking pothole in the middle of the street. So it's not like a straw man. Like, there's some people that honestly like think that's that's kind of problematic.
It's a transformation. Yeah. I mean, the first time I heard Mike say on the Daily Shoah that we could have single payer healthcare. We could have whatever we want. I mean, the normie GOP that was still alive inside of me at the time just got triggered.
I was cringing.
We can't have this. We can't have this. And there were even people, there were people who were like, no, this is not, there was a little bit of a, people were upset. But now I'm like, absolutely, we need this because it is to help our fellow. Yeah, I think the people that don't get it are still in that mindset that we can have these things and we can have our cake and eat it too. And the truth is that we can't.
It has to be all profit motive, or else the system won't function properly. That's right. Ridiculous.
Yeah, but my opinion is why I think a lot of libertarians come over is those kinds of views are like they're like a temporary. There's like a holding pattern you have before you understand the reality of race, and like if you're willing to say like, no, people that can't pay and don't deserve to be a part of it.
That's
it's
true.
like, okay, that's in and of itself like a proto-racist.
Yeah, that's
view,
how I used
right?
to take it.
Because all you, you know what I mean. Like what you need to get is
no. What I'm saying, man,
when you start,
that means the niggers that can't afford it, they'll die. Oh,
right.
Okay.
No, but that's actually true. And again, once again, like the left in some of their diagnosis of the right is actually correct. Like they see in people that are willing to say, like, I'm willing to exclude the poor. I'm willing to exclude those that can't afford it.
Well, I got news for you about niggas.
They see. Right, exactly. Exactly. So they understand that that's like a proto-racist feeling. And you would feel way worse about excluding a poor white person than excluding a Indian. All of us would. There's no question. And that's just how that's just how it works. I mean, that's a biological impulse that you have. Like you would much rather help a poor white person than a poor black. Now there are poor white people that do disgust me as well, don't get me wrong. But that libertarianism, that sort of mercenary, like only people that pay in deserve anything, everything should be, on your ability to contribute, etc., or your ability to make money, not even just to contribute, but to make money. That's a proto-racism for a lot of white people, like non-Jews. I mean, that's like a narrative that Jews use to bring kind of racist white people over
the ruse is you're doing totally colorblind capitalism there, Goy. It's like, oh, there's no racism here, and like, what are you, you racist liberal? You're assuming that a black can achieve this. Can't pay his own bill. You're the real race.
That's the fucking bait and switch right there.
That's the original. Liberals are the real racist shit right
there.
Yeah,
that's the original like DR3 bait and switch move that they do, even though it's like, once you realize that it's like, no, actually I was talking about blacks the whole time. Like the whole time I was a libertarian, I really was actually saying like blacks. Like, but you remember we were talking about how when we were libertarian, we used to I used to say things like, hey, look, if I was an entrepreneur, I would say, and if the federal government would allow me, I would say, let's have no Muslim airlines, right? Like let's have an airline literally that advertises to the public that it excludes Muslims from flying on its airline. Like you are guaranteed a no Muslim flight when you fly with no Muslim airlines, right? Like I would allow that. You know what I mean? Like I would absolutely. Like that's the kind of free market I'm talking about. So that's when I was a libertarian, that's the kind of stuff I would talk about. And it would trigger people, and I'm like, no, but think about it. There's a huge market niche. Like, wouldn't you, as an airline passenger?
Oh my God! But what would happen
if you could buy a
before
ticket?
You know it? All the airlines would be doing that. Then that wouldn't be fair to Muslims.
Right? It's like,
I don't care. The point is, what does the market want?
The market wants that and must allow it to provide that.
So I'm still like very open to a lot of libertarian stuff because, like, look, hey, you know, if there was no federal regulation preventing it, there would be an airline that was essentially saying, I don't know if they would be that explicit. They probably dog whistle like all passengers security vetted, but behind the scenes, everybody would know. Like, yeah, it just means there's not letting Muslims on these flights, right? So. So I mean, there's you can go kind of both ways with it, but I do think a lot of that, a lot of libertarianism is quasi or like proto-racism. It's a lot of ways that white guys get out of what the system that's basically ripping them off.
Wasn't that kind of rooted in the whole freedom of association piece of it, though?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's attractive because instinctually we want to be free to associate with our own kind. So.
Yeah, and not be forced to associate with people who don't want to. I mean,
right.